In the Garden of Eden, the serpent offered us the fruit of knowledge, yet we were taught to call it evil. Why is that? Have you ever felt a sudden rush of energy you couldn't explain, a subtle awakening, a question that wouldn't let go? That's the serpent calling from within. The serpent in Eden wasn't simply a deceiver or a villain. It was a catalyst, an ancient symbol that signaled the beginning of human awareness. In this light, the serpent's presence in the garden becomes less about temptation and more about the possibility of awakening. The act of eating the forbidden fruit wasn't a curse, it was an opening. Picture a coiled serpent at the base of your spine, representing a dormant force within every person. When awakened, Kundalini rises through 7 key energy centers, known as chakras, unlocking states of clarity, awareness, and deep connection. Spiritual awakening becomes tangible, experienced as energy moving within the body, shifting perception and understanding. Before the serpent's intervention, Adam and Eve existed in a state of unawareness, limited by innocence. As empires like Rome grew, centralized religious authority reinterpreted popular sacred symbols, including the Urias, into cautionary tales to maintain order. The serpent, once linked to wisdom and divine power, became a tool in the hands of those seeking to shape belief and behavior on a mass scale. This shift was a strategic move. By turning the serpent into a warning, institutions could direct spiritual longing outward, away from inner discovery and towards sanctioned forms of worship and obedience. In ancient Egypt, the Urias, the cobra, on the pharaoh's crown wasn't merely decorative. Ancient initiates understood that awakening this energy led to self-mastery and a direct experience of the divine. But such autonomy threatened established hierarchies. If people realized that divinity was something to be remembered within themselves, their reliance on external authority would crumble. The demonization of the serpent was, above all, a means to keep that realization buried. The serpent, which had represented personal transformation and spiritual sovereignty, became a figure of temptation and downfall. When a symbol that once encouraged self-realization is recast as a threat, people are less likely to seek their own answers or question authority. Whether through focused meditation, deliberate breath work, like pranayama, or silent ritual, they created the space for the serpent to awaken. These practices aren't about spectacle, they're about listening for what's already present. Darkness, silence, and stillness become tools, not to conjure something new, but to reveal what's been waiting. The process is not about adding power to yourself. It's about uncovering the wholeness you already possess. This energy, known as Kundalini, is the hidden power every person carries from birth. In the Bible, Moses lifts a bronze serpent on a pole. Those who look upon it are healed not just of illness, but of blindness to their own potential. You might notice a hum or a gentle warmth at the base of your spine. Sometimes it's a tingling at the back of your neck, a sudden urge to change your life, or a quiet moment when the world seems sharper, colors more vivid, and time slows. There's a growing sense of inner peace, a feeling that you are not separate from the world but deeply woven into it. This isn't an escape from reality, it's a grounding in what's real, paired with a sense of clarity that wasn't there before. The Upanishads, ancient Hindu writings, describe a coiled energy at the spine's base, the very same serpent fire. The emerald tablets speak of ascent, light, and a hidden path, symbols pointing to the same awakening. These aren't just stories or allegories. They're instructions, reminders of what's possible for anyone willing to look within. It isn't something you need to seek outside yourself. It's already there, waiting for the right moment to rise. When it does, it doesn't just shift your thoughts. It changes the very way you experience the world. In Egypt, the Urias signified royal connection to the divine. In India, the coiled serpent of Kundalini pointed to latent spiritual power within each person. But as fear of the serpent spread, practices that encouraged awakening meditation, breathwork, energy rituals were dismissed as dangerous or heretical. The message was clear. True power was not to be found within, but only through approved channels. This discouraged independence and kept the masses dependent on external guidance. Fear worked where reverence once inspired. This was not just a matter of shifting stories. It was a calculated effort to make inner power seem forbidden, even perilous. It stood for divine authority, wisdom, and protection, a living sign of enlightenment and power. In these images, the serpent was no longer a guide to enlightenment, but a beast to be defeated or cast out. Such imagery stuck in the collective imagination, deepening the association between the serpent and evil. The more terrifying the symbol became, the more effective it was in redirecting spiritual exploration away from the self and into the hands of authority. In Hinduism, Kundalini is the primal energy, coiled and ready to ascend. Mesoamerican myths tell of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, who brought civilization and knowledge. Across continents and centuries, the serpent is a universal archetype, recognized in myth and ritual as a bearer of transformation. The serpent offered them a choice: to awaken, to see, to become more. If so many cultures revered the serpent as a guide to awakening, what purpose did it serve to turn it into a villain? It was an invitation to step beyond ignorance, to claim sovereignty over your own awareness, and to explore what lies beyond blind obedience. When we see the serpent not as a foe, but as a symbol of the potential within us, we begin to understand what was lost and what could be regained. The invitation has always been there: to expand, to awaken, to remember the power that lies dormant. But if the serpent's image was so radically changed, what forces were at work behind this transformation? And what did humanity stand to lose when fear replaced reverence? When a symbol that once stood for hidden wisdom and inner power becomes something to fear, the consequences reach deep. To fear the serpent is to fear the very process of enlightenment, to distrust the call to awaken and grow. This shift raises another question. What happens to us when we are taught to turn away from our own potential? Their eyes opened, and for the first time, they truly perceived the world and themselves. This wasn't a fall from grace, but a step into the complexity of consciousness. Paradise didn't vanish. It became an inner journey, a process of growth and self-discovery. The moment Adam and Eve tasted the fruit was the moment they stepped into consciousness. This wasn't just about breaking a rule. It was about breaking through the limits of unknowing, about moving from passive innocence to active understanding. Across centuries, the serpent has been revered across cultures as divine, pointing to what Eastern traditions call Kundalini energy, the force that awakens human consciousness. You'll discover how ancient traditions encode a path to inner power, and how reclaiming it can change your life today. If any of this sounds surprising, hit like, and let's explore together. The story you've been told about the serpent is only the surface. What lies beneath is far more powerful. Gnosticism saw the serpent as the bringer of wisdom, a force that helps humanity transcend ignorance. Hermetic traditions cast it as a bridge between the earthly and the divine, unlocking cosmic mysteries. In Eastern mysticism, the serpent is energy itself dormant, waiting to rise. These traditions don't fear the serpent. They honor it as a symbol of spiritual growth and expanded awareness. To understand the serpent's true identity, we have to look past the familiar story. From Gnostic wisdom and Hermetic bridges to Eastern tales of coiled energy, the serpent appears as a guide, not a tempter. Take the Eden story and see it anew. This idea closely matches the concept of Kundalini energy in Eastern tradition. The serpent's sacred status isn't limited to Eden or the Bible. So why, then, did this universal archetype get twisted into a symbol of evil? The serpent's true message was never about destruction or deceit. Throughout history, the transformation of the serpent from a sacred guide to a symbol of evil was not accidental. Religious leaders reframed awakening into danger to keep individual power in check. This transformation was reinforced visually and culturally. Medieval Christian art began depicting the serpent not as a subtle presence, but as a monstrous, dragon-like creature meant to instill dread, not curiosity. The consequences reached beyond symbols and stories. As the serpent's image darkened, entire traditions of esoteric wisdom and mystical practice were suppressed or erased. At the heart of this suppression lies the serpent fire, the dormant energy known as Kundalini. Waiting at the base of the spine, despite centuries of suppression, the serpent didn't vanish. So what truths has it been waiting to reveal? Awakening the serpent within is not a myth or a metaphor. It's a process rooted in the body, a quiet force coiled at the base of your spine. Sacred texts have always hinted at this mystery, often in plain sight. When Kundalini stirs, the signs can be subtle or unmistakable. These shifts don't happen by accident. Ancient initiates knew the value of preparation. Whether through focused meditation, deliberate breathwork like pranayama, or silent ritual, they created the space for the serpent to awaken. These practices aren't about spectacle, they're about listening for what's already present. Darkness, silence, and stillness become tools. Not to conjure something new, but to reveal what's been waiting. The process is not about adding power to yourself. It's about uncovering the wholeness you already possess. The journey of raising Kundalini is an initiation. It's not a single moment, but a gradual unveiling. The serpent's ascent is a return, not to a lost paradise, but to a state of connection and awareness that's always been possible. Notice it and let us know in the comments. The story wasn't about a fall from grace. It marked the beginning of a journey into self-realization and divine power. If this reshapes how you see yourself, subscribe for more explorations of ancient wisdom and share your experience below. What will you do with the serpent's fire inside you? The serpent's lesson is clear. You were meant to remember, not forget, the fire at your core. The serpent within is not a force to fear, but a guide to your own awakening. It isn't chaos. It's the path homa, path to the wisdom and power that have always been yours. For ancient seekers, this was not an extraordinary event, but the natural goal of spiritual practice, to remember, to reclaim, to embody the fullness of being. Have you ever experienced a moment when your perception shifted that could be a glimpse of this energy? The serpent was never your enemy. It was your teacher, inviting you to look within and awaken what has long been dormant. The garden never left you carry it in every cell. The serpent still coils, waiting for your signal.